Welcome everyone to another USI Tech Talk. Today we are lucky to have Chris with Resimac here to go through some concrete repair systems with us. And Chris has, you've been in the industry for 20 some years?
It's like it. Yep, sounds right.
Giving expert advice to people that need not just concrete repair, but engineering repairs, chemical protection, waterproofing, actually, I didn't realize I could just read it off this slide. Corrosion protection and thermal protection
There it
with
is.
the Resimac line.
That's it. Chris, it's good to be back with you, man. It's good to be here. And so, yeah, I mean, we get the privilege of looking after so many different areas, right? With this line of material, and concrete being one of them. So yeah, let's flip through it. I think it's concrete's it's an important one, right? Most of our life, most of our time we're spent watching and repairing metal. But concrete's one of those things where when it doesn't work right, can be an issue, right? It can be a problem. I look at the different reasons we're seeing them there, right? Some different reasons why concrete's not going to work, but why it's a huge problem or concern, I would say in a plant or even a commercial building facility would be for trip and falls. You get a little divot, a little piece of concrete missing. Somebody, high heel goes into it or a toe, and that's an issue.
Well,
I've seen.
and just trips, slips and falls, they count. They're the number one OSHA reportable every year. I think it's going on like 30 years running. Uh, and there's an Aberdeen study that says, each one of those cases, right, the ones that are reported to OSHA, cost between like $10,000 and $50,000 for the business that it happens in. So they had pretty big costs when it comes to just even just little things on concrete, not to mention some of the giant things we have sitting in front of us.
That's it. I mean, think about it. It could be like a slab. I've gone into a lot of warehouses where maybe this area of the warehouse is new. This warehouse, part of the warehouse has been there since the 50s. And just naturally, things settle differently, right? And so, you got a slab over, I think we got a picture of it someplace in here maybe, where, the slab is just slightly higher or lower than the other slab. So again, trip, you get forklifts in warehouses, forklifts like basically launching off, launching off of a slab and throwing their, the load everywhere, could potentially tip over the forklift. And so I think safety is a big part of concrete. Okay. I mean, that's obviously why a lot of calls come into you guys, come into us saying, hey, listen, we've got to fix this. Okay. It could be a nosing on a stair. Hey, this is just spalled out. It's just worn down. It happens, right? I would say the other big issue that we address with our materials and our concrete repair materials would be that concrete is porous. Okay, right? And so if an acid or another harmful chemical were to spill over the porous concrete substrate, saturate into the concrete, and heaven forbid, beyond and into the ground and all that stuff, contaminating the ground. Again, OSHA loves those things, right? And so I think that those two areas, for the safety and for the ability to saturate and penetrate into the concrete, damage the concrete, I think those were primarily the reasons that we're getting these phone calls, right?
Yeah.
And how can I fix this? And so concrete repair for Resimac is kind of like our paste grade material on metal. It's the first thing that we need to address, right? It's the first thing that we need to address to make sure that we get, a relatively uniform substrate prior to probably doing something else, right? Putting one of our protective barrier coatings over top of it. So that's it. And there's lots of in the industry, there's lots of possible concrete repair materials out there. All right. And I would say that the biggest thing that differentiates us from the other guys is the longevity, the ability to uh, resist different exposures. That freeze-thaw cycle, I mean, you guys were in Michigan, right? I used to be in Canada. There's a lot of cementitious materials out there, so water and some glue is that bonding adhesive, it's all putting your faith in that And what happens, right? I mean, as soon as that first winter, maybe that second winter comes through, that freeze-thaw effect, the moisture that's in the underlying concrete freezes, pushes against your repair material. And, if you've got something that's not going to bond well, it's coming up again.
Yeah.
So, it's those
It,
temporary fixes that, again, our guys are trying to get away from is how can I fix this one time and be done with it, right?
right. And some just going through some other ones, right? You have issues at joints where they expand, and you have some we have some answers there as far as being able to isolate and put some products in it. You have those cold joints where you're getting different different levels of your pour are falling apart. You can also have slab separation. That's where you're saying you get those little ramps, and then you have your high-lows doing little jumps where they shouldn't be. Uh, and
That's a
and as someone who has driven a high-low over some pretty big ones, they can get scary.
you don't need much of a variance in a forklift to feel it, right?
Oh yeah.
You can feel it. And if you're carrying a heavy load in front of you, and if you're carrying an expensive load, and you're the most expensive load, right? I mean, your safety is of the most value on the forklift. And so you don't want a forklift tipping over. You don't want a forklift doing anything that it shouldn't do. It should just go straight. It's just bear through. So, and some joints, obviously some cuts and some joints are supposed to be there in concrete, right? So, that's important. We don't fill in just every crack. We understand, what needs to be filled in, what needs to be repaired, but all of those things again over time, just naturally, they're going to wear down. We're gonna, and so I think that's what it is. So let's talk about a few of them here in the time that we've got. Okay, like I said, this is getting us typically for Resimac, for USI, for Resimac, is going to get us to the next step. Okay, so we have how is ours different? Again, cementitious uses water. Okay, that's a lot of the materials, the repair materials that you're going to get at the big box stores. Okay, good materials for a period of time, or good materials maybe for areas that are not going to see high traffic or any other type of exposure. All right. But in those areas, if it's a warehouse, if it's a commercial building, if it's a sidewalk, if it's a stair, no, I mean, all those things where, again, you want to fix it once and you want to walk away. These are some different repair solutions. We use, for the most part, epoxy resin. Okay, epoxy resin is our binder. It's the what goes on there and bonds and creates what we say in the industry a tenacious bond. So it actually becomes part of the matrix of the underlying concrete, saturates in, grabs to the underlying concrete. So when we do our pull-off test or adhesion test, often, almost always, we're pulling the original concrete away. So our material at the bond line, doesn't typically, break away again. So, that's the adhesion. That's the strength of our repair in almost every case. Okay. And that's true in all of our different Resimac concrete repair materials that we're talking about today. Okay, is that adhesion. The other thing that's a constant is the compression, or the ability to resist that weight, that load on top. Okay. Concrete typically is going to be around what, 3,000, 5,000 psi. We're upwards of 12 and 15,000. So, a lot of times 4 or 5 times greater compression strength. So a lot of load on top of us, is what we can resist. And that's because we have a quartz aggregate typically with our with our aggregate in there. Just makes it a lot more wear resistant in the bonding.
Yep. And then that'll bring us. Why is this not clicking forward?
Well, let's talk
There we
about
go.
just for a minute. Just let's talk about 570 if we can go back. Yeah, that was a lot of generalized conversation. Come on, Chris. Come on, be with me here. 570. What's good about 570, Chris?
It's fast. It's real
Fast.
fast.
It's the speed, right? So a lot of the repairs that we might get into that you might see around your building, around your warehouse are small. Okay, hey, this little piece of concrete came off. This handrail broke away from the concrete that it was bolted to. So they needed something fast. Okay, speed's always the thing. So this one, it's a self-priming, so no primers required. It wets it out. It rebuilds, builds and, it trowels down, and it's hard in about 45 minutes. Forklift traffic in about 4 hours at 70 degrees, curing temperature. So very quick, very fast, get you, back into service in that small area. And you can do bucket after bucket. So I mean, it comes in a smaller container, but you can carry on and use this material for larger areas as well. But that's kind of the intention, is that it's a localized small repair, and it needs to get back into service as quickly as possible. Okay. So the next one is very different. It's very different. The 571 is for the vertical, so a concrete wall or a tank wall, or any type of concrete on a vertical surface or an overhead. Okay, so you get those concrete bridges in the overpasses that trucks come by and smash into. And so we want to rebuild those. So with bonds, you can build about a 3-inch variance, right? So we can pack it in about 2-3 inches without sag, without it falling on your face. No pinning required, no rebar, no, you don't have to expose the rebar. It bonds again straight to the sound solid concrete. Okay, that's it. Really nice product to work with. It just applies really nice. Again, it has a slower, it says there, hard cure in about 4 hours, which is about right. So, it's got about your 12-hour cure to back to mechanical hardness. But again, on a vertical surface, hopefully not too many people are driving on that. So it's there and it's ready for you. But really, really nice, real nice product to use.
Yeah, we tend to get some like oohs and ahs for people that have had to use forms to put stuff like repairs in place like this.
Mhm.
And the work that you do with the 571, the best part is you don't have to put that form up. It's so lightweight, and it's made specifically to just kind of travel, just like that last picture there, right into a vertical or even overhead space.
That's right. I mean, a lot of guys will still put a form up. They'll put a board underneath and they'll just pack it in and that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, to your point, it's not required in a lot of these different applications. Yeah, for this.
All right, that'll bring us to 576 and 577.
We're flying through this, Chris. All right, come on. Right. So where 570 again was for that localized smaller repair typically. Okay. 576, if we can dwell on 576 for a second, is designed for a larger repair. So if you're rescreeding, an entire floor or an entire secondary containment area, this probably would be the way. So where 570 is fast set, but it's also a limited working time. This one you've got a lot, a longer 20, 25 minutes of workability to trowel and make sure that everything looks good as you leave it. Now, it is a slower curing product, so you have to be aware of that. But that's what it's designed for. And 577 is exactly identical to 576 in all properties, except that we use a Nobelac resin as our binding agent there in that particular case, and it gives you excellent chemical resistance in addition to everything else.
And with that chemical resistance, right, it's really important to note like the reason that the concrete had issues to begin with, whether it is that freeze dry, or it's erosion, or it's general corrosion, and the stuff affecting it. That's where the coatings come into play, right?
Right.
Which is another thing that Resimac does a fantastic job with. Is these repairs are fantastic. Most of them are going to hold up perfect where you put them. If it was a one-time thing, you put the repair product in there, you're good to go. If it's a kind of chemical environment that keeps eating away, right, that's where the 577 really gets a chance to shine. Is you can put it over the whole area even, and repair any damage that was done, and it will protect it. Or you can do that, and or use a 576 and cover it with a chemical resistant coating that's made kind of specifically to cover those whatever is in that environment, right? Whether or in that secondary containment, or the other issues that you're having in that specific spot.
And so to your points, I feel that again, why somebody primarily goes to 577 again is because of the time allotted for a project. Okay, so exactly what you said. A lot of times we will get into, let's say, a secondary containment area, which is that area underneath the storage tank, just in case you had a catastrophic failure of that holding tank and you need at 72-hour window, let's say, to provide protection, chemical resistance in your secondary pool, all right, secondary containment area. So what a lot of guys will do, a lot of applications will be is the 576 in the areas where you've had exposed aggregate or other areas, again, resurfacing everything. And then once it's cured up, which is that's a big deal, you come back in now on everywhere and you put that barrier coating, that chemical resistant coating everywhere in that secondary containment. Now, the big with that is in this particular case, that could be 24 hours after your application of the 576. Okay, you got a weekend to do the job. That's a big deal. So exactly what you're saying, many will choose then to go straight with the 577 that eliminates an entire, 3, 4 additional steps because you're doing 577 everywhere. You're getting that 1/4 inch, let's say, trowel thickness everywhere. And now you don't have to worry about coming back in 24 hours or ever and putting on the primer, putting on 2 more coats of chemical resistant coating over top of it. You're done. So that would be a huge reason to go with 577.
Right. Now I think it's time for my favorite part, which is where we get to ask questions. We have
Yeah,
quite a few people in here. I'm open up
great.
mics for everyone. You can go ahead and put your questions in the chat. There's a Q&A portion as well. You can type them out there. I'll read those off. You can also open up your mic and ask any questions that you have for us.
Be gentle.
A wise man told me wait 21 seconds or was it 13 seconds, somewhere in there for questions to come out because it takes a second for people to formulate them. I think he's actually on the call right now.
The wise man.
All right, we got one through chat. So where are these products available and only direct or at retailers? So you can get any one of these products from us here at USI. You can reach out to us at office@usigroups.com. You can also give us a call at 248-735-7000. And I'll put those off again at the end, but that's office@usigroups.com or 248-735-7000. You can also find us online at usigroups.com. So we got another one that says, what repair materials hold up best in freeze-thaw environments?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, that freeze thaw is, the moisture freezes in the wintertime, pushes away at a repair material. Uh, the answer would be that in our particular case, all of these materials resist freeze thaw effect, right? So any one of the materials that we looked at today on Resimac would be suitable for resistance against freeze thaw.
I
So, and I'll mention, we're bonding to sound solid concrete. That's our requirement. So as long as we start there, you're gonna have really good results with these materials.
Yeah, I was going to say, check your tech data sheets when applying, especially in those environments. Like Chris said, all of them are fantastic when it comes down to it, but how you're going to get your best results is following that TDS to the T, especially when hey, I put, let's say I put a regular mortar patch in here before, and that mortar patch just pops out
Yeah,
every winter, right? I
yeah.
think all of us have had that kind of situation. Um, and following the TDS, following all those prep steps, making sure your surface is prepped exactly how it says is going to give you the longest lasting repair.
Yeah. And I think in addition to that, Chris, right, is that, pick up the phone and call USI, pick up the phone and call us in Florida, ask us those technical questions or those concerns, because, we definitely don't want you just guessing and hoping. We want to direct you to the right product. Yeah. So, I mean, if we have a good idea of what your end goal is, right, what the concern is, we can definitely put that plan together for you and say, yeah, definitely let's use these materials to get what you want. Absolutely.
That's great advice. Just clicking through, seeing if there's any other questions. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to open up your mic. I do have another one that says, how do you prevent repaired areas from failing differently than the surrounding concrete?
How,
I
read that again there for Chris. Come on.
How do you
How do
prevent
I, yeah.
repaired areas from
Okay.
failing differently than the surrounding concrete?
Hmm. I, I don't know. I don't know what
Uh,
that question means, Chris. I mean, I would say that, obviously concrete, uh, I was once told, all right, a wise man, not your wise man, a different wise man told me once that paint, right, paint or coatings is not smart. If it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail uniformly, right? I mean, it's gonna fail. So I would say the type of material that you choose for an application, okay, provides maybe better or worse protection against it. So our materials just naturally, because they're different from a cementitious concrete, they're going to provide better wear resistance and better adhesion and better other things than in some circumstances. And I would think that that's it. So if it's concrete or metal or any substrate, if you have issues, right, that you don't feel that you should have, right, let's talk about those because we will provide ways to make them better. And I think that that's how you prevent additional or continued wear and damage from happening is using the right materials to fix it, the right techniques.
right. And one of the things that I've seen is where, because this is usually so much harder and it has that additional compression strength that your concrete doesn't, is someone will put in a patch and then the area around it, because it's still getting beat up in the same way.
Yeah,
Um, the concrete around it's failing and the patch is just fine,
yeah,
right? And that's not a great, experience either, because like, okay, great, the one spot's good.
yeah,
Um, And the answer to that is usually, hey, we need to make sure that we have all the information when it's coming down to it, because we might suggest, hey, let's knock out a couple inches around it and kind of build it up gradually, so you don't have a hard transition from one to another in those places, or relief cuts, stuff like that, all come into play when you have something like that. And for people like us who are suggesting the products, the more information we have, even though it might sometimes feels like overload, the better,
yeah.
right? And sometimes
I
it's
yeah.
not the truck that's going over it every single day, right? It's that truck that comes in once a month that's carrying all of your liquid supplies, that's 10 times heavier, that's
Yeah.
causing the actual damage.
I'm going to also say that yes, it's technique is what you're saying, Chris. It's application
Yes.
technique, right? So, these are the ways that we terminate the repair. These are the ways that we prevent that repair from, but and all of those things we can and we will and we do lay out in a method statement, in an application statement saying it's more than just here's the material. It's here's how you apply it. Here's how best practices in the industry and in our materials on the application. I feel is absolutely right. And then it's the system, right? So if you repair the patch but ignore the rest of it, then you're, as you said, doomed to repeat what has happened with what you just repaired. So if time permits, again, every application is a little different. Maybe that's all you needed was that one little patch, and then yeah, if the stuff around it fails, in a year from now, it's no big deal. But if it is a big deal, then let's talk about that and let's provide a repair in that patch in that hole, let's say, and then a system, a coating maybe, or another thing over top of the rest that would prevent, as a preventative maintenance step, prevent any additional information or wear from happening or issues happening.
All right. Looks like we have two more questions. First one is, are any of these materials compatible with humid environments? I have a scenario where it'll be difficult to create a dry environment during the curing period.
That's a good question. Let's see. How humid? How humid? And I'd like to say yes, yes. I mean, if it's not this material, we have some other materials that we can look at and explore that perhaps can get us where we need to go prior to, or yeah. So I think that there is a solution that we can talk about for sure. So let's
Yep.
talk offline a little bit more specifically about that application, and I think we can figure it out.
Yeah, if you have specifications on that, again, office@usigroups.com, fantastic place to send that. We'll get you in touch with one of our technical experts on this end and help you out with whatever you're running into.
Yeah.
And then our last and final question, because we're actually, time flew today, we're 10 over.
Oh,
What are your product's permeability data? Reason is that the PA department or PA DEP requirements for tank containment systems.
so they're virtually non-permeable. I mean, I was going to say that, obviously we say that they're non-permeable because of of how it's formulated and how it's applied. Anything is permeable at some point, at some rate. So again, we can send over some data sheets that will provide some additional information for them. So again, reach out to Chris, reach out to USI, and let us know what it is, and we'll make sure that we get that specific information for you. I'm losing my voice now, Chris. We've been talking here for like 30 minutes or whatever, and I'm at a refill.
Well, thank you, everyone. If you do have additional questions, again, you can reach out to us at office@usigroups.com or at 248-735-7000 with those questions. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you.
And thank you, everyone else, for being here. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.